Hey guys, it's Mountain Walk, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about more magical decks, more tournaments, more stuff, another big tournament, lots of decks, lots of cool stuff. So let's go ahead and take a look. Alright, this was something just happened a couple days ago. This is the couple days ago, a week ago, whatever, something like that. And this is just another online tournament, of course. And yeah, so there's 42 people total, and they have 16, of course, top 16 for this tournament. And so we'll start at 16, and of course at 16 we have a sort of typical mud list. Nothing wonky here. I could actually see pretty much running this list myself, except again minus the metal workers, which I'm not that much of a fan of. But yeah, everything else looks pretty good to me. But yeah, this is just mud. This is mud deck, playing mud cards. Nothing weird here. Typical prison deck. All right, so now we got stasis. Again, same sort of thing here. Nothing too wonky. Sometimes, I mean, there's a little bit of difference. Sometimes you see counter spells in here, and sometimes not sleight of hand, I believe. Usually, again, like the Morphling, again, sometimes in the main deck, sometimes the sideboard, as a one-of typically. I think misdirection, maybe misdirection, I guess, is somewhat common. I mean, it's something that you see occasionally in the sideboard. But nothing too weird here. Black by skill, Howling Mind's good, helps you keep up cards to pitch for Forsaken City, as well as Howling Mind, of course, has good synergy with Black Vice, so that's always sweet. But yeah, nothing too weird here. So yeah. All right. So again, another deck that is not that strange, not that unusual. We have blue, black, white Dreadnought deck, and it's exactly what you think it is. It's basically just playing Dreadnought and a bunch of other stuff to get Dreadnought, and then of course some Daze and Duress and Meddling Mage too, I guess. Yeah, is protection. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Lots of good stuff here. Yeah, again, nothing too weird. Nothing too wonky. A nice appearance by Peak. These decks sometimes play Peak, so you know what to name with Meddling Mage. So that's a good. That's some pretty nice synergy. I like that a lot. All right. I like how the guy named the deck Generic Rock, because it's pretty much just a generic rock list, right? Nothing too weird here. I mean, the mana base is a little wonky, so they cut like a forest and a swamp to play like 2 City of Brass, as well as instead of like the other colorless lands, they're playing Mishra's Factories in addition to Treetop Villages. But that's not that strange. Everything else is, I mean, pretty much it is what it is. Got an extra Dust Bowl in the sideboard. This is, of course, very good against, well, any slow decks, any control decks, of course, able to take out their manlands and such, and all sorts of nice stuff on the sideboard. Again, nothing too weird. Again, a very typical sort of rock list, but not a bad one. Not a bad one, of course, certainly. I think it's quite good. All right, now this list is spicy. This is certainly in line with the grand tradition of, wow, I like these 2 combo decks. Why don't I just play them both at the same time? And that's what we have here with this full English breakfast and Allurin deck. I mean, yeah, this is getting spicy. This is like ghost pepper spicy, really, if you think about it. So we got basically the Allurin combo with Cavern Harpy and everything. Um, and of course Raven Familiar plus Cavern Harpy. Then you have the full English breakfast combo with Shapeshifter and Phyrexian Devour and Psychotog and things like that. Triskelion, Phyrexian Devour. Yeah, so this is pretty spicy. I mean this this looks super janky, but I like it. I like the jankiness. That's pretty cool. Definitely a interesting thing. Man, that's super janky though. Look at this fucking shit. Wow, what a fucking pile. But I love it. But I love it. It's too late. I'm already in love. So, can't convince me otherwise. All right, got another one. Another one with some interesting cards. Uh, One of them I even had to look up. Veteran Brawlers. Uh, in the good old tradition of 2-mana 4/4s. Yeah, this is quite a interesting card. Obviously, pretty good if you're destroying or tapping all of your opponent's lands. 2-mana 4/4s, pretty good deal, right? So that's definitely good. Key to Encampment is pretty interesting because it's basically like it kind of sucks as a land, right? Because like it's really bad for curving out, especially with a deck that wants to cast like a bunch of Stone Rains as your like first, second, or third land. It's really bad, but it's fine on like turn 4 and forward, of course, because it won't screw up like your just spamming your Stone Rains and wasting ports and stuff like that. But yeah, I like it. I kind of like it. I kind of like it a little bit. I kind of like Veteran Brawlers, even though it's again super janky. But it's an interesting brew, interesting stuff going on here. Got the 1-of Hammer of Bogarden, of course, which is a very powerful card when you're just running a bunch of lands and can recur it. So that's pretty nice. Again, sideboard pretty stock for like red decks. But yeah, this is sort of pawns a deck, sort of red deck wins, but like with some more jankier stuff. I mean, I probably should have put Ring of Gix. I don't know. Is it X silent? I don't speak Phyrexian. I'm not sure, but Ring of Gix is interesting. Like I always thought. I think I said this in one of my other videos recently that I'm pretty sure. Um, Icy Manipulator is slightly underplayed, only very slightly. You only very rarely see it, but I think it's a little better than that. And I think there actually are some decks that can really leverage it. So Icy Manipulator might be something to look at, maybe for control decks. I mean, even board control decks, things like that. Like, gets them to play more into your rafts, kegs, steeds, stuff like that. So I'd say it's an interesting card, something to think about. But yeah, I think this is pretty sweet. But yeah, again, outside of the Gitu Encampment, well, Gitu Encampment maybe isn't too spicy, but certainly Veteran Brawlers is interesting inclusion. But yeah, good stuff here. Good stuff here. Okay, and this is a Devourer list. That's basically it. Yep. This is basically stock standard Devourer lists. Same main deck, same sideboard, nothing too wonky. Yeah, I guess that's about all I can say. Again, we've talked about these decks a bajillion times, so not much more to say here. Don't really want to or need to retread that ground. All right, and this is basically Counter Rebels. The only thing is different is like it's playing like a Prohibit and a Factor Fiction as well, which is a little unusual, and a slightly smaller Rebel chain with like only 3 Ramosian Sergeant and like only 3 Lincivi and 2 Defiant Falcon, 1 Whipquarter, Sky Marshal, Jova Queen, and Defiant Vanguard. So I mean, it's like, I mean, it's fine, right? I like a more abbreviated rebel chain in a lot of my decks just because, like, I think Ramosian Sergeant is a powerful, really great one drop. You can sneak it in under counter magic. This is great and can, like, just fetch out just piles of whip quarters or a couple of whip quarters depending, or even just more Ramosian Sergeants, right? I think that's still actually pretty good too. Um, so yeah, I think this is fine. I think there's maybe something here, I'm not sure, but I've never been a huge fan of counter rebels. I think it's just a little bit slow. I don't think the deck is bad. I do like the blue-white sort of interactive decks, but I like them with just cards that are just better, more standalone cards that don't really need the synergy, that are just like, I mean, I don't think it's really necessary to build up to like these 4 and 5 drop guys that are just like pretty unimpressive just in general, right? Um, I mean, it's just whatever. I feel like I'd rather just go a little bit faster with a little bit more disruptive with like Melee Mage and Savannah Lines and stuff like that, or maybe go the route that I went with Weather Wayfarer with a whole shitload of Wastelands, and maybe a Dust Bowl, and then like Spiketail Hatchling and things like that. Those are more interesting, I think, than like this a lot dirtier, slower, so it's just going to be worse just against everything. Um, yeah, but it's just whatever. I don't think the deck is horrible or anything, but it's just like, yeah, I'm not going to play this. Definitely not going to play this. All right, and now we got this thing. I tried like a little bit to try and play like an Atog kind of deck. I was like, oh man, what if there's enough good artifacts to like sacrifice to it? I couldn't really figure it out. It didn't really seem good enough to me. But yeah, I didn't even think of, we'll just jam the Dreadnought and Fling thing in there too. So you can, really go nuts. Because that'll take a huge chunk out of them. So like maybe the Tog and Black Vice can soften them up, and then you can finish them off with like Lightning Bolts or Phyrexian Dreadnought Flings or Mistress Factories or something. So this is really interesting. This is very cool. So yeah, fleeing a Tog or this is great. I like this. This is pretty interesting. An interesting take on the sort of red prison archetype. A lot of cool stuff here. I'd definitely be interested to see how it works. So yeah, I definitely like it. This is definitely very cool, very interesting. Again, a lot of really interesting sort of decks. Very cool stuff. All right, and this is the rock. And this is like not that wonky. This is pretty much the same. This one is playing Sylvan Library on the board. Certainly, I think Sylvan Library is very awesome, very powerful card. Probably slightly underplayed, honestly, with how good like Landstill and the other control decks are. Sylvan Library is just like, bam, amazing. Gives you tons of cards, and really good card selection, especially with like shuffle effects, like obviously fetch lands, tutors, anything else. So definitely pretty sweet there, but yeah, this is a standard rock list, but I'm definitely a huge fan of the Sylvan Libraries in the sideboard. I mean, they're really, probably for most decks, there probably should be at least 1 to 2 Sylvan Libraries like between main deck and sideboard. Just how good the card is, because it'll just be decks that are a lot slower than you. Don't put a ton of pressure on you, but maybe they have this sort of inevitability. So being able to like draw into or filter into your sideboard cards is quite good, quite good. All right, and this is basically the Angry Hermit deck, and as well as the Dreadnought deck. So you can do your Hermit Druid thing, or you can do your Dreadnought thing. That's pretty cool. That seems pretty interesting. Definitely pretty sweet, pretty strong, pretty powerful. Definitely seems a little, well, a little bit slower than the other versions, which could certainly be an issue. But that's probably, I mean, maybe that's for the best. Maybe that makes you less vulnerable to certain hate cards, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, the sideboard again, just 4 chill against red decks because those are pretty horrific, I'd imagine, as well as 4 neutralize against all the other hate that you face, especially if you're like a turn slower or something. Yeah, that'd be pretty good. And then of course, yeah, just random stuff. Gilded Drake, Utopia Orangutan against, like, say, other Dreadnought decks, Reanimator, things like that. Defense Grid, of course, very good against control decks. Yeah, so this is pretty interesting. I think we've seen this. I've seen this around a couple of times. The Dreadnought plus Hermit Druids. That's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting take. All right, and it's land still. And the only thing weird is that they play an Enlightened Tutor main deck, and that's not really weird. And they have Dust Bowl instead of Wastelands. That's about it. Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, again, the only thing is, like, yeah, their sideboard's really good too. The only thing is, like, maybe you could change out the furnaces for crypts if you expect, like, the super fast aggressive decks. Furnace is better versus, like, the slower, grindier ones or whatever, the ones that aren't trying to kill you on turn 1 or 2 or something. Yeah, so that's, other than that, I mean, everything looks really good. I mean, the Null's very powerful, Cop Red, very good. Yeah, Furnace, Disenchant, another, yeah, just tons of really powerful cards. Orb Silence, Arcane Lab are both very good when they're good, right? Like, Arcane Lab against, I mean, even the Dreadnought decks, because they have to play 2 spells a turn, right? Or more, right? This could take them even longer to play stuff just because they have to play multiple spells to, like, if they need an Enlightened Tutor to play it, then, I mean, then they have to wait another turn, and then still they can't even combo off because the Dreadnought plus Stifle or whatever is 2 spells, of course. So definitely interesting stuff here. But yeah, other than that, it's basically, this is just land still, and it's gonna be like 99% the same. So, all right, and so now we have our first Goblins list, and this one is not super weird for the most part. Like, in the sideboard, you have one of Sparksmith. Sparksmith is even a card that can see playing main deck, because it's just so good against, like, the green decks of all stripes. Like, you know, you can nuke Wall of Blossoms, Wall of Roots. You can very easily kill, like, Raven's Baloth, which is quite good. For no mana, right? Because these decks aren't, with the exception of, like, Stompy or something, these decks aren't really pressuring your life total, so, like, leveraging Sparksmith against them is very good. Again, it's pretty shit versus Engineer Plague, but I mean, that's, you know, you have other cards against that typically. But yeah, nothing weird in the sideboard other than just, like, 1 crypt, I guess, if you don't really expect or you have other ways to combat the graveyard-based decks, which are typically creature-based decks. Like, obviously versus the Hermit decks, you have stuff like Pyrokinesis, Sparksmith itself, Log Fanatics, Gem Palms, Lackey Siege Gangs, same thing with Sharpshooter and stuff. So you have a lot of game against those decks. Yeah, 4 Kings is just, like, that's certainly not something I can co-sign. I don't think that's very good. Like, I think it's just sort of a fundamental misunderstanding. Like, most of these cards aren't worth, like, a kill spell. And if you think your King's just gonna be like, oh man, this King's gonna give me so much damage, like, and then just kill it, and then, like, what, your dudes die to everything else when they're getting blocked? I mean, just, again, I don't think King's very good. I don't think traditional lords typically are very good. Like, they just aren't. Like, the what? Were you gonna Sly? You think your King's gonna live against them? I mean, come on, give me a break. And yeah, obviously Ancient Tomb's a big one. This one's not very good either. Like, I mean, if you're like, I am never gonna play against any aggro deck ever, I mean, okay, I guess. But also, they're just bad multiples, especially if you're playing against, like, anything that will pressure your life total. I mean, this deck is super mana heavy, so like tapping your Ancient Tomb and just taking two all the time is not really a winning strategy. It's pretty suspect, as well as yeah, obviously just garbage against aggro decks like the super hyper aggressive, just like I'm spamming 1 mana 2/1s and 2/2s against you is, and then taking two to play your like your Goblin Matron is I mean, all right, interesting plan there. I don't think it's very good either. I think that's definitely a trap. I think mono red is good just because you have just like basic mountains and then like utility lands you can use. I like one Ancient Tomb like sometimes as like a, instead of like just playing a pile of like wastes and ports and stuff. I think port is just better. It gives you actual disruption against a lot of these like slower combo decks. It makes your draws with Lackey much better too. So it makes your ridiculous draws, say with like Lackey against combo decks, Waste and Port are just that much better, right? And you can just use your mana to disrupt your opponent. Drawing like multiple ports just means you can lengthen that out through the rest of the game, right? So you can lock down their mana even longer. But drawing multiple tombs against like even something like the Rock could be a problem, right? So, because eventually, like, if you're just like, all right, I'm playing all these guys, but they can wipe your board, right? And so you're already down like a bunch of life. And oftentimes, what Goblins likes to do is use its life total as a buffer. Like, okay, I'll play my Goblin War Chief, and then, maybe you hit me for a bunch or something. But like, if I untap this guy, I'm just gonna play a bunch of stuff on you, right? And again, with a War Chief in play, the value of colorless mana goes down a lot. It's not that good. It's not very good at all, right? I mean, obviously, like, and then of course, like, it makes your deck just a lot worse versus like Price of Progress and stuff. Yeah, oh, I'll just hold up my Wasteland every time to waste my Ancient Tomb, and yeah, okay, whatever, dude. Like, give me a break. That's stupid. So yeah, don't play 4 tombs. That's just not good. Like that's just dumb. If you want to be like combo decks, just play your wastes and ports in some amount, and then play duress or something, or play the right sideboard cards. Like, yeah, Ancient Tomb is not good in this deck. Like, for the most part, like, I mean, because you just give up so much against aggressive decks. It doesn't really make your best draws better. Like, oh, I can play my Matron earlier, I can play my Ringleader earlier. But what if you get like you get your War Chief in play, and it's like, okay, great, now I have like no use because it's like this deck is its bottleneck is red mana. It's not colorless mana. So yeah, that's dumb. So yeah, don't TLDR, just don't play Ancient Tomb. Okay, yeah, this is basically another blue-green Dreadnought thing. Uh, Same stuff, different day. Nothing weird. Oh, I guess plays Wood Sage, which is weird. I don't know. Let's play Mental Note instead. I think Wood Sage is a trap. I mean, sure, this like digs for your Dreadnought, but Wood Sage is like a blue-green 1/1 tap and name a card, reveal the top 4 cards of your library, and then put that card into your hand, and then put the rest into your graveyard. I mean, sure, yeah, it's good. It takes you for Dreadnought, but I mean, you already have 4 Dreadnought and 4 Worldly Tutor. I think that's fine. Um, I'd rather just play Mental Note, and I think the Wonder's kind of like sketch too. Like, if you don't have, I mean, other than you just draw it and it's a blank because you can't discard it, like that's pretty bad. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's good to like to actually have a sort of different additional plan, like. So, like, obviously, Nimble Mongoose and Werebear, obviously, they're vulnerable to graveyard hate, but Dreadnought isn't vulnerable to graveyard hate. And while they're all vulnerable to creature hate, stuff like Humility and whatnot, or Elephant Grass, or things like that, right? Ensnaring Bridge, for example. It does stretch their cards out a bit. Um, but yeah, and I think I think like yeah you can I think the going Turbo Dreadnought and like it's being like, okay, try and just make them answer it early. It feels like a bit too much like Belcher to me. I mean, because this is a format where people are playing like main deck disenchants and stuff. Like we aren't even talking about like targeted hate cards and stuff. So I feel like actually having a good alternative route to victory instead of just like, well, I hope I can kill them before they kill me is, not that great. So, but yeah, nothing too weird here for the most part. And this is just full English breakfast. This is, yeah, nothing weird here. I can't remember. Trying to, I think I might have played more walls in my full English breakfast list. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, this is nothing too weird here. Uh, yeah, yeah, yes, intuition, some therapies, unearths. Sideboard we have chills and naturalize, some tutor targets, um, some crypts. Yeah, it's not that weird. I mean really the base of this deck, you're always going to see the same stuff over and over again because it needs just a certain amount. You obviously need a bunch of creatures, as well as you need like a bunch of multicolor lands to cast and activate survival and so on and so forth. So nothing too weird here. I don't remember if Unearth was, what's the word? If it's like standard or not. But I mean, I think obviously Unearth is fine. It's very good with Shapeshifter, of course, too. Because it's just a very cheap way to put it back into play. Sans something like swords or whatever. But yeah, pretty normal, pretty normal. And then, of course, we have another Goblins list. And this one is, again, pretty standard for the most part. Let's see. What's the only thing? There's a couple things I don't like. 23 lands. You should pretty much always play 24, right? Like, especially if you really want to leverage stuff like Waste and Port. You're going to need, like, so many number of red sources, at least, like, 16. Again, 16's baseline with if you're playing 24 and then, like, say, 4 Port, 4 Waste or other colorless lands. So that's a big one, as well as the Barbarian Ring is bad. It's bad. It's not don't play Barbarian Ring. I mean, this deck already it's already set up very, very well to grind, and like taking a bunch of extra damage is just going to hurt you in so many matches over the long term. It's just not worth it. It's just another wastable mountain. Like, why would you want one of those? There's just no upside to this card. Like, just being able to randomly shot. I mean, this isn't Sly, right? Like, the Goblins isn't an aggro deck. I mean, this is kind of like a meme at this point, but everyone's like, Goblins is not an aggro deck. Well, I mean, it's not really, right? Like, it can kill on turn 4, but like, it operates very differently. It needs typically like a certain number of creatures in play for its synergies to be active. Things like, say, like Sharpshooter, Gem Palm, Pile Driver, and so on. The deck needs to have like a bunch of different goblins to tutor out with Matron, and then of course Ringleader and stuff. So it's better to think of as like a mid-range deck that can assume different roles, like tactically or I guess really strategically. It can kind of be it can control the board fairly well, especially with something like Sharpshooter. It can kind of play like a combo game, right, with Lackey and then with random turn 3 kills and stuff like that. So I mean, it can do different things. Certainly not as well as it can in Legacy or something like that, but still, like, don't think of it as an aggro deck. You're already so very well set up. But what you want is a good solid mana base, especially with these multicolor lists, or and even the forest. I mean, well, I guess if you're playing main deck naturalize, wow. Anyways, just don't play Barbarian Ring. It's not good in this deck. Just play another mountain, for the love of God. Play 2 more mountains, please. You need 24 lands. Playing 3 Fnatic, that's absolutely a mistake. I do like Prospector. I don't know if you need 2. I do like 2 Prospector, but I think at least 1 is fine. And I'm not a huge fan of King. I think the bolts are fine. I think the main deck Naturalize is fine too. Bolt's pretty good. It's also really unexpected. So it's sort of like Days and Show and Tell, where people are like you can just switch Days in and out of the main deck in Show and Tell, and people like they'll play around it when it's not even in the deck or whatever, and then like after a while you take it out, and then they don't play around it, then you put it back in, and you can get them with that. So like that's an interesting kind of thing because Bolt is just one of those cards like Flametongue Kavu back in the day used to be in a lot of the goblins list just because of the efficiency, like 1 mana 3 damage, being able to burn people out from all sorts of various positions where you don't have an actual threatening board position. Very powerful and underrated, I'd say. Sideboard, again, nothing too weird here. Lots of good stuff. Just Furnace Crypt, blah, 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 blah. I'm not a huge fan of Tranquil Domain. I mean, I guess if you're seeing a lot of Enchantress and stuff, that's fine. And I'm not a huge fan of Caller of the Claw. Having to hold up mana is just shit. Like, just play Sylvan Library, bro. Just play Sylvan Library. Like, just draw a bunch of extra cards. I mean, that's the way to do it. Like, yeah, no, I don't like Caller. Everyone knows that Goblins plays Caller now. Like, it's just a huge tempo sink. Like, I'll pass. I'll just play my Sylvan Library. When you have one land and you can't do anything about it. So, like, yeah, turn 2 on and play Sylvan Library. Oh no, I guess I'll just draw into all these Red Elemental Blasts and counter all your Factor Fictions. Oh, it's so horrible. Oh, look at all my mana efficiency. It's the worst thing of all time. Who would want to do that? All right. Anyway, so this is the deck that won. It's pretty good. I would give it an 8 out of 10. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Maybe maybe it's a 7 out of 10. Well, it's fine. It's fine. This guy is obviously Greek. We love the Greeks. Everyone loves Greeks, so you can't go wrong there. All right, so that's pretty much it, guys. Lots of different decks, lots of interesting stuff, lots of brewing, people coming up with all sorts of interesting, crazy, cool stuff. So yeah, very cool, very interesting, very interesting. So that's it. That's it for today, guys. So thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this, and have a nice day.